Yesterday there was a pretty girl sitting in front of my wife and me at a movie, and most of the time all I could see of her was her hair. When I sat behind girls in classrooms in grade school, their hair could drive me crazy. It wasn't even actually alive, but it was more affecting than most people's faces because of the intimate way it was involved with the girl it belonged to. It was out of my reach while being right there, completely exposed, with all its uncontrolled feral implications mixed with the messages of its grooming, and all of that heart-rendingly moving for the way its possessor was innocent of the effects. It was like spying on someone sleeping. In third grade, I was crazy about Mimi McClellan. If I try to picture her, there's no face. There's just her dirty blonde hair and a big bouffant. But no one that young could have worn a bouffant like that when I think about it. It was 1958, and people didn't wear that hairdo until Jackie Kennedy showed up 2 or 3 years later. I would lie in my bed at night thinking of Mimi McClellan and fantasize getting hit by a car so that she would take my hand and I could tell her that I loved her. In the 6th grade, there was Janet Alstein. It is probably Janet's hair I put on Mimi, because Janet did have a big dark blonde bouffant, preserved by hairspray, a silken mist, a soft, fragrant mesh of crystallization. The young girls wore white cotton blouses with ring-neck collars, and cardigans and culottes, maybe a delicate gold chain necklace and tennis shoes or fast loafers and bobby socks. Many of the girls had breasts by then. Janet's were larger than most. I never revealed my feelings to her either. A year or two later, we chanced on each other somewhere and we talked, and it turned out she'd had a crush on me at the same time. That seemed tragic, Shakespearean. I can't remember when I started masturbating, but it was long before I could come. We boys thought there was something perverse and inferior about jacking off, having sex alone. I had this tactic for excusing it where I wouldn't start until I could give myself a hard-on without actually touching my penis, just by thinking. Considering those fantasies now, I wish I could see them as if they were movies. I was so ignorant about sex, it would be cool to see what I was picturing. I know Roy Baker's mother sometimes figured it. There was a great Mad magazine spread in the 60s that featured photos of 3D versions of children's drawings, photos of everyday objects constructed as if the children's drawings of them were accurate, such as a stubby little airplane with different length wings that pointed in different directions, and propellers on it that looked like broken matchsticks, and dripped misspelled words on its fuselage. Human works that don't hide the crudity of the approximate nature of their representation are the best. At the same time, the little I did know about the mechanics of sexual activity when I was 13 was plenty. Drawing a picture no more detailed than an infinity sign with a dot in the middle of each loop of it, and below that the outline of an hourglass that had a downward pointing triangle of scribble in the bottom center of it, was enough to give a boy a giant erection. I spent half the 8th grade having to walk with my school books held in front of my jeans to hide the sideways bulge. Sometimes a few drops of liquid would escape just from the friction of the fabric, and once or twice it then actually shuddered into spurts right there in the crowded corridor. When I eventually got a finger inside a vagina at 13 or 14, it was like being ordained into a new dimension, almost supernatural, as if I had pulled the sword from the stone. I went for a long walk afterwards, furtively passing my fingers under my nose every few hundred yards, the scent insignia of my kingdom. I didn't have full sexual intercourse until I was 15. My only interest in her was that I thought she might let me do that. Sex drive overcomes almost everything. Many have died behind their dicks. After all, where does reckless aggression come from but testosterone, and where does testosterone come from? Many have died, and many around them have been totally fucked, and often greatly liked it. But this unlucky girl didn't like it, or very much of anything else, as far as I could tell. She was a waitress at a big boy drive-in by the university. She was 19 and a hillbilly from Appalachia, and she was not just narrow-minded and ignorant, but dumb as a rock and about as energetic. I flirted with her when I'd go in for a hamburger. I told her I was a pre-med student. I walked her home from work. Soon, she gave me the key to her apartment. The making out was not relaxed. It was like hacking through wilderness brush that clung to your ankles and scratched your face as you struggled on further and further, your heart racing because the incentive was so powerful, namely female genitals, dripping wet pussy. In the end, her pussy wasn't even very wet. She was so nervous and put upon. Fucking her was horrible, though God knows I couldn't get enough. Even once her clothes were off and she was lying under me on the bed, she didn't participate, but resisted uncomfortably and for appearance's sake, all the way through full penetration, which she refrained from giving any sign of joining, but rather lay there stoically, performing only a last symbolic hip bump or two of denial and refusal. This was to confirm that she wasn't a disgusting person, but was permitting this terrible, embarrassing act as a begrudged extreme favor to me. I understand there still are cultural strata where this is standard behavior, even among married people. Thank God for pornography. Thank God for the sexual revolution and the pill and rebellious, fun-loving girls. Though I can't deny I'm still repressed in America enough to like sex dirty. And I do love hair because it's dead but personal, and because I'm moved by the futility of its attempts to warm and protect the places where it grows.